Mrs. Brady here. We're going to look at estimating sums and differences in fractions using benchmarks. Estimating is similar to rounding. When it comes to fractions, we use just three certain benchmarks: 0, 1/2, and 1. We look at the fractions and we determine what is it closest to. Is it closest to 0, 1/2, or 1? Let's look at the problem 3/14 plus 6/13. 3/14, that means 3 out of 14. 3 out of 14 is closest to 0. So this changes to 0. 6/13, that's 6 out of 13. Well, 6 out of 12 is a half, so 6/13 is closest to 1/2. Now all I have to do is add 0 plus 1/2. My answer is 1/2. Let's look at another one. Let's look at when we have three fractions. Let's do 9/10 plus 1/15 plus 13/25. I look at those three fractions one by one, and I figure out what they are closest to. I estimate them, changing them to 0, 1/2, or 1. 9/10, 9 out of 10. That's almost the whole thing. This would change to 1. 1/15, well, 1 out of 15 isn't very much. That's going to change to 0. And 13/25, well, 13 is half of 26, so that's pretty close. We're going to change 13/25 to 1/2. Now I add all those together. 1 plus 0 is 1, plus 1/2 is 1.5. Well, let's look at when it's mixed numbers. If we have 5 and 3/20 plus 2 and we'll do 5/8. I look at my fraction, 5 and 3/20. 3/20 isn't very much at all. It would be closest to 0. So this would stay just 5. 5 and 3/20 is closer to 5 than it is 5.5 or 6. 2 and 5/8. 2 and 5/8. Well, 5/8 is pretty close to 4/8, which would be a half. So 2 and 5/8 is closest to 2.5 than it is to 2 or 3. Now I can add my new numbers. 5 plus 2.5 is 7.5. Remember, the only benchmarks you use are 0, 1/2, and 1. If you're ever not sure about a fraction, draw it out and see. 5/8. If I draw it, it can help me understand what 5/8 is. I have 8 sections, and I'm going to shade in 5 of them. Now I think, is it closest to 0, half, or 1/2? I can see that 5/8 is close to a half. I hope that helps.